The content of this podcast is for informational and storytelling purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare professional for any medical concerns or decisions. Welcome to Partner Perspectives. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have Lindsay with us today and her daughter Lily, and she's going to be talking about what it's like to be a long-term care provider. She's been caring for her grandparents, her parents, and her daughter, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and what it's like. So thank you so much for being here today, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So like I said, I know you've cared for more than one population. And before we get started and digging into your relationship very specifically with your daughter and some of her health challenges, I would love to just know something about you outside of your role as caregiver, because we are much more than one thing that defines us.
Yeah. And it does become like a really big part of your essence. So I would think the other thing would be I'm a founder of a company called LT Care Nav that actually helps people plan for long-term care, which I guess is still in the same realm because it's become such like an ingrained part of me.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you become very passionate about something, it sort of naturally leads you on a path. And it's pretty empowering to be able to make that process easier for other families knowing what you've gone through. So I think that's amazing. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of the diagnosis journey, because from what I understand, that was a long process. So early on, you noticed that like things were not right. What was it like trying to fight and advocate? Like, did you find that the doctors were really receptive, or was it a struggle to really get people to pay attention to what you as a parent knew was going on with your daughter?
It was probably one of the most frustrating experiences of my life. So I could tell really early on something was going on because her disease is very loud. So her ankle would blow up and her ankle would be like this big. And so I take her to urgent care and I was like, did you do something? And she'd be like, no. And I'm like, okay. And then they would be like, oh, we don't see anything. No break. So they would send her home in like a splint or something. And we were doing this a couple times a month.
Wow. So it's like band-aiding, but never getting to the source.
Yeah. And they would just send us home with braces. We have like the world's largest collection of braces for any joint you can imagine. And with these swelling, she would spike these really, really high fevers. And they'd be gone the next day or 2 days later, like 105-degree fever with no other symptom, no cold, no stomach. Like she would have stomach aches, but like nothing like congestion. And I was like, this seems weird. Her fever had gotten up to almost like 106 something one time. So I took her to the emergency room and they checked for viruses. She had nothing. They were like, go home. She'll be okay. And I was like, but isn't there something wrong?
Right. Like this is not normal.
Yeah, it took us years. And I was going to rheumatologists. And one of the big problems with her illness, and I think a lot of the illnesses in the autoimmune, autoinflammatory space, is they're very like flare and like they're very flare related.
A bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you call a doctor when you're in the middle of it and they get you in 6 weeks later, you're like, okay, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah.
And so we went through that for years.
Wow. So when you did get to the point where you found that there was consistency with very specific autoimmune issues, what was it like to finally kind of have a name for the things that you've been struggling with?
So it took us a couple hospital stays. And the last time that we were in the hospital, her hip joint had so much inflammation, it actually like separated. Oof. And the doctors were like, she has sepsis.
That's scary.
And I know. And I was like, she doesn't have sepsis. Like she would have had sepsis like 100 times, like this year. Right. And it just so happened to be we were at like the doctor at the right place. And we were at the Cleveland Clinic and we had multiple doctors come into us going, okay, we think we know what it is, but we can't make the diagnosis. And I was like, oh, well, so what are we going to do to treat it? And they're like, oh, well, if we don't have a diagnosis, can't treat her. Oh. And finally, somebody recommended we go down to Cincinnati Children's Hospital to a doctor that specializes in autoinflammatory diseases, which are different than autoimmune. They're harder to capture. They're more rare. And to actually have a name to something, not that you ever want your kid to have something, was such a huge relief because it meant like I wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about her. Like we could get treatment, but I went years with people just looking at me going,
No, I think that's absolutely right. I think when you and your gut and your heart know that something's wrong and you just can't get anyone to fully acknowledge that frustration level. And again, I think as a parent, it's even worse because this is your child. You want a life for your child. And it's so hard to watch them not being able to live the way you want them to, which kind of leads me into like, what was it like to watch her struggle during like childhood when she should have been, you know, trick-or-treating and maybe playing a sport and doing those kinds of things? As a parent, like how did you wrestle with like, okay, I just need to figure out what's wrong, but also like creating normalcy? What was that like?
So it was really hard in the beginning because we didn't have a diagnosis and people were like, oh, maybe it's in her head, maybe it's in your head. And so I kept advocating for her, but like it was almost just like I'm like, okay, pull up your bootstraps, right? You're good. Like nobody says anything's wrong. Right. So I think I ended up forcing her to do a lot of things, and I feel bad because I did that, right? I do think kind of made her tougher, and she is a pull up your bootstraps and I'm going to fight through everything kind of kid. She is the worst like FOMO of any person you've ever met. So she's really good about pushing through, but it's funny you said trick-or-treating because it's the change in temperatures plays pretty heavily on her. Oh, wow. So here in Ohio, she missed trick-or-treating, I would say like a good 10 years. Aww. That she just every Halloween had a fever and couldn't get out of bed.
Wow. Yeah, that's so tough. And I think you spoke to something that probably a lot of parents can empathize with when they're dealing with things like this of, you know, when you're told, like, we hear you, there's symptoms, but we don't know what it is, kind of choosing to say, all right, we're going to function in the best way we can, as normal as we can. And I think that's a really real thing that people probably struggle with. So I really appreciate that insight. So obviously there were moments that you doubted yourself when you kept getting these answers that were not defined. And I think it's probably like after maybe like the first couple, you're like, no, something's wrong. And then it's like, as it continues, you're like, you know, like what is wrong and not being able to really put a name to it. So, so during that time, did you feel at all like isolated, like from your peers that had kids the same age and weren't going through that? Like, was that strange, or did you find a sense of support from those people? What did it look like taking care of you during that time?
I think it's even more different than when you take care of someone older because it really, like, there's no you in the factor, right? When you're a mom, like, you're a mom. And then when you're a mom and you have a sick kid, it's like you're profoundly invested into it and nothing else matters. I had a really good support system. And luckily, her disease was loud. So the people around me, like, could see there was something wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone was equally as frustrated, at least in my core group around me, as I was. I feel for the families that don't have diseases that are as loud. And when I mean loud, like she would get hives that would cover her entire face.
Right, you visually could actually see some of these things.
Her hair was falling out.
Yeah.
I mean, things were swollen. So and the fevers were so high, right? My sister-in-law has a daughter, so we have a niece who has Crohn's. Okay. And when she was younger, it was quiet. Like she didn't have the stomach issues. And so she and I just had a conversation recently because she feels really bad because until she got a diagnosis, she was really tough and was like, you're faking, you're doing this. Yeah. And like, but I feel like because Lily's was so loud, my support system, everyone kind of was like, yeah, there's something wrong.
Right. So medical community, not so much, but the people around you could really see the impact it was having on you.
Yes.
And her. Yeah, that's great. So obviously, you know, you're advocating for your daughter, you're, you know, pushing her where you think you should, trying to get her all the medical care she needs. And now she's 15. So what does it look like to be so involved in this like advocacy and getting her what her needs? And now she's stepping into more independence. Do you find it difficult to sort of like step back a little bit, or is it sort of exciting for you?
I think it's a combination. She sometimes is very ready. When it comes to our day-to-day, she's like, leave me alone, right?
Right.
When we're in with a doctor, all of a sudden she can't say much. Like we actually had a doctor recently when we were there just a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, Mom, you tell him. You tell him. And the doctor said, if you don't tell me, I'm going to ask Mom to leave the room.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think doctors are helping us with this transition because we're talking to her about like, if you want to go to college in a few years and you are going to a doctor by yourself, you have to articulate all this.
That's a good point.
And we know it's complicated. So it's definitely like we're at a give and take right now. Like I know she needs to do it. I respect that she needs to do it. But sometimes I'm also like, okay, so you're not cutting to the chase. Let me
you almost go on autopilot. I'm sure there's like a certain sense of like, this is like kind of like the routine when we go into the doctor, I say this, we do this, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like to all of a sudden try to change that routine takes a little bit of like intentionality of like, okay, I'm just going to try to let her speak.
Yeah. Well, and the other problem I have with her is when someone goes, oh, how are you? She's like, oh, I'm good.
Right.
She says it to the doctor and I'm like.
And you're like, out in the world, sure. But in here, like, let's be honest.
Yeah. She goes, oh, I just don't want to complain to them. I don't want them to think I complain too much. And I was like, please complain.
Yeah. You're like, this is the place. This is the time and place. Yeah. That's actually really good. That's an interesting point too, because I think that's probably very personality based somewhat, right? Like some things are conditioned into us. But I think, if that's just her personality of like, I don't want to be a bother. I don't, know, and it's like teaching this skill that's not intuitive or feels like right is tough, to kind of say, it's okay to push back in this environment and in this environment, it's okay to be polite in these other spaces, but not when it comes to your healthcare, right? Like just learning that like self-advocacy piece. So I can see that being something. And then I guess thinking through, so I understand that like there's this piece of you that's like a little bit regretful that maybe you pushed her when she was younger, and maybe part of you that's like, or maybe that was good. So now that she is older, that she can better articulate her symptoms to you at least. Like, is there this balance between having a little bit of fear over her state of health, but also wanting to properly push her to take chances where she can? Or does she seem to like be willing to take those chances?
She's very willing to take the chances. And so right now we're in this interesting conflict of when she was little, she was a gymnast, which was a really good fallback for the doctors to be like, it must have been gymnastics that caused that, right? Everything went to, well, it must have been gymnastics.
It's like orthopedic. It's all orthopedic.
Yeah, we were very close with our orthopedist, but everything must have been gymnastics related, and she loved it. And so finally, now she has arthritis in her hips and her back from all the inflammation, and it was time to quit because she was on a competitive team.
Yeah.
So she quit, but she got into high school, and I don't really know the difference between high school gymnastics and competitive, but she said, oh, it's like baby gymnastics. So we have had this like push and pull of she's not really making it very often, but when she does, it's like she goes to one practice, she's out for a week of extreme pain.
Yeah.
And that has been our big thing right now is I'm like, you can't do it. And she's like, yes, I can. And I guess I could just not drive her there. But, but there's also that this is like her passion. So this has been a big push-pull where she is not taking care of herself really well and making not the best decisions.
Mm-hmm. It's, it's sort of like you wonder if there's this, again, in her head, this drive for normalcy.
Yep.
Even if it feels out of reach, it's like, no, I'm going to keep reaching for something. And you're like really trying to teach her this life lesson of it's okay to take care of you first, and you can do these things later, but it probably feels different to her than the average child. So I think that's probably a factor. What do you feel most proud of when you think of the way you've seen her start self-advocating? Like, obviously you have to push her a little bit and you have these push-pull in these other areas, but what have you just like seen, as parents, we always are really find these elements that we're just like beaming with pride over. Like, what are the things that just warm your heart and give you those fuzzies when you think about Lily?
So I am not seeing the self-advocating as much, and she's my girl. She's pretty reliant on me in a lot of cases, but her school. We've had a lot of great feedback from her school about her ability to articulate the situation. They understand she wants to fight through, and we've gotten it to the point where she'll look at her teacher and be like, listen, I don't feel good. I don't want to go home. I want to be here. Can I put my head on the table?
Mm.
And that's a
great.
yeah. And the school's been great with working with us around those kind of things. But she's very clear about her drive and her motivation to be places and to be involved, but that there's limitations. She's getting better when it comes to like school days and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's good. Right. It's like baby steps in that right direction. Mm-hmm. So that's good. How would you say this situation, so going through this, and obviously your other caregiving roles, I'm sure, shape you this way too, but I guess, like, how do you view resilience, both for yourself, your family, and for Lily in terms of, short term and then longer term?
So she is unbelievably resilient in how she fights through the day and her motivation. A big thing that she's doing right now is for her 8th grade Changemaker project. She created an app for kids who have autoinflammatory diseases that help them track and understand and get diagnosis at quicker pace, right? Wow. So to track to flares and understand it. So she has really been resilient in taking these challenges and turning them into something positive. She wants to be a pediatric rheumatologist.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and she's doing medical programs this summer. And I think that's really, I've seen her really thrive of like, I can take my lemons and make some lemonade for better term. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think just like turning the conversation to you a bit. So obviously, like we started the conversation, this is just such a huge part of your identity and who you are as a person. How has this role that you've taken on with your family, again, both your grandparents, parents, and your daughter, how has it really shaped who you've evolved into, let's say, over the last 20, 30 years? Because you were caring for your grandparents before you were caring for your daughter, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah. It is a big part of who I am. So I actually was a caregiver in memory care and hospice right out of high school.
Okay.
So it is my nature. I would have loved to have been a nurse. Blood grosses me out. Like I get that hot flash feeling, right?
Right.
So that's not really a career for me. But the actual caring part is really a big piece of who I am. It's natural to take care of your grandparents. It's the natural order of things to take care of your parents, right? I wish I didn't have to care for Lily in the fact that, obviously, beyond being a mom, because I wish she didn't need that.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm glad I can do it. And I hope everything I've learned has made it so I'm coming from a place of patience with her. Because sometimes caregiving is hard. Sometimes you get super frustrated. Everything is tough. And so I hope my experience has kind of made it so I am a little more patient with her than some other.
Yeah, like some people don't have that capacity. So it's like you have this innate capacity, and you've had the capacity for a long time to really just give a lot. How do you refill your cup? Like, what are the things that you love to do for like fun, or how do you restore yourself when you're giving so much all the time?
My favorite, I go to, the one thing I don't miss is I go to yogas on Sunday at 11. It's like my thing. That is like my big, me time.
Something you have to protect.
Yes. And it's 1 hour of once a week. And I think caregivers have to realize sometimes that's all it is.
Mm-hmm. That's all you get.
That's all you get. But make sure you have that, and that has to be a priority. Like, it is something that's very much, that is my 1 hour. Who can help make sure I get that hour?
Yeah. And do you find that people understand that they want to, the people around you are like, we need to protect that for you? Like, have you been able to advocate to say, like, this is my one thing, this is why I need to do it? Like, does your family and your friends kind of get it?
Yes. And actually, my husband was just saying to me like a couple nights ago, he's like, it needs to be more than 1 hour. He's like, I can tell you need more than 1 hour a week. And I'm like, but where?
Yeah. Where does that fit?
Where do I find it? Like,
yeah.
Show me where in this calendar you find an hour.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's the reality that a lot of people face when they are in a position like yours. And that maybe it's not for your life. Like, as parents, right? Our kids are always our kids. But you would hope or dream that your children would get to a place where, they are able to be a bit more independent. And I think an important thing to remember for people going through things that you're going through are those stages of life that we go through with our kids last a certain amount of time, and then we progress past them. But when you have a child with chronic health conditions or a child with special needs, some of those phases of life last longer. And so they take like this extra ability to like dig deep and really proceed forward when it feels like a lot. So I think it's really helpful to understand this piece of like, okay, at this stage of your life, you get your yoga and that's what you get. Do you find if you get to a point where you do need more, is there ever anyone that you can like reach out to and kind of say like, I just need to vent, or I need, like, do you have those people in your life, and at what role do they play at kind of keeping you sane?
I'm really lucky. I have a really nice support system around me. And I mean, I have a husband who's great and is is there too. I'm a bit of a control freak.
You become type A when you're in these situations. That's fair.
I'm going to say, so he would probably pick up more, but
if you let him,
if I let him, but that control freak thing kind of sneaks in sometimes. And, but I am really, really lucky with everybody I have around me. Lily, who I know everyone will get to meet, and she's amazing, but like when she doesn't feel good, it is not like my time is her time.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. There is no exception for that in those moments.
Yeah. Like, so she had a really, really bad day yesterday, and normally she would have been at school, and I actually had an hour and I was going to go do another yoga class. And she was like, don't leave me. Don't leave.
And you're like, okay, I'm here.
Yeah, I know. So,
yeah.
So like, I guess I could have been like, no, you're okay. You're going to sleep. Right. But I'm like, no, I will be here for you. Because you're right. It's finite. It's going to change. Yeah. And she wants me now, and I'll be here.
Yeah. I think that's a reality that, a lot of parents have, of this time that both feels like really hard and tough and wearing, but knowing it's temporary, right? Like knowing that, I have a daughter similar age to yours, and I just think like 3 more years before she's 18 and out of the house. And so it's like in these moments where she wants to stay up late and talk till midnight, and I'm like, I'm so tired. And you just make those exceptions. So I'm sure, like, regardless of your child's health, like, you want to be there for them and continue to be their mom. So I think that makes a lot of sense and sort of normalizes, like, that part doesn't change in your mothering. That's just a part of you being a mom. I want to hear a little bit about your company. So tell us just a little bit more about that, what service that sort of provides for people that are in similar situations.
So LT Care Nav is about coming up with a plan. And it really does focus more on older, senior kind of loved ones. But aging is hard, right? Finding care is expensive. So like, I'm lucky with my daughter because it's still medical care, right? And we still have a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. It is expensive beyond that, but everything is covered in one way or another. Mm-hmm. When you get to long-term care for older adults, it's not covered. Right. Everything is out of pocket. Medicare is not going to cover it, and it becomes excruciatingly painfully expensive. And so what we really do is help families prepare for long-term care, understanding what that might look like for their family, understanding what it'll cost, coming up with really kind of creative ways to finance this that fit into your budget today, that make your care affordable tomorrow, or really understanding what Medicaid looks like. Because sometimes that is the best way. And there's a lot of asset protection kind of things that most people don't know about.
That's cool. That's really neat. Yeah.
They can help them do that. So we help them create that entire plan. And then I think the thing that we do that's the most beautiful is we actually connect them with the professionals who can help along the way. Because what I found through my experience is finding the right person to help you is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And so it is not mass lead generation. We make an introduction to the people that we feel that you'll need in your journey. And you don't need to reach out to them today, but they're there for you as long as you have your portal and you can go back and access them at any time. And it's completely free for families because anyone going through a care situation is already having enough issues. The last thing they need to do is worry about another monthly fee.
Yeah, that's amazing. And when would you tell families would be a good time to start thinking about looking at LT Care Nav? Like what age for their parents, for example, or what time of life is best to get started?
So we're really focusing on like that 60 and up. Okay. That's really the right time. I think as we move forward in the next 5 or 10 years, it's really going to become part of your financial planning. And it's going to have to happen earlier and earlier. I don't think there's enough education around that for most people yet. But right now, it really is like before there's a crisis. You should have a plan in place. If you wait till like mom falls, you can still come and plan because there's still opportunities.
Right.
But
it just looks different. It looks very different. Yeah. And that's how I feel about preventative care in general. I think we know that there's a huge benefit to the like regular checkpoints, regular check-ins. And I sort of view this as the same idea where we're thinking of this prior to a crisis occurring. So, well, I love that. That's so interesting. And I love how you've turned your life experience into something concrete that really does help other people. So I think that's a great use of your time and energy. And I will definitely check that out. My parents are in their 70s, so it's time for me to do that as well. And then sort of just to wrap up, I would love for you to give any insights that you might have for parents who are going through a similar journey with their kids, right? Like, so parents who are struggling to get a diagnosis and or have gotten a diagnosis that maybe isn't, like to your point very early on in this conversation, sometimes getting that diagnosis is both a relief and feels like a long-term thing. So what would be any advice you can give?
So to the parents who haven't gotten a diagnosis yet, like trust your instincts. Your mom, your dad, you know your kid, and remember that, the medical system doesn't work perfectly. So if you're not there at the right time, right, the doctor may be missing stuff. So just stay on it and keep advocating for your child, even when you're doubting yourself.
Yeah, I think that's hard. There's probably a lot of self-doubt.
And when it comes to getting a new diagnosis, I guess it's take one day at a time.
Yeah, that's good advice too, right? Like, because it can probably feel so big if you dive into every article and every group and when you get that information, it's like, oh, this is a lot to process.
Yeah. And do it slowly. And don't Google it.
Yeah.
Don't go and dive down the rabbit hole because you never know. It's not helpful. I did it. It wasn't helpful.
Well, we all kind of do it, but I think it's great advice to say like, maybe that's not the place to go. So, well, thank you so much for being here today. We're very excited to talk to Lily as well. And we will share out information about your company. I think it's a really great service and would love our listeners to be able to take a look at it. So we'll make sure we put that out there. And thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Have a great afternoon.
You too.
If you want to hear the other side of this partner story, make sure to like and subscribe.